All right, welcome to lab 1 of AI-102. Getting started with Azure AI services. And we're going to be doing a lot of steps here throughout all of the labs. And I thought that I'm only going to do them once here in lab number 1, right? So first of all, what we need to do is clone the repo given to us in the instructions. Again, I'm only going to do it once, and then in the future labs, I'm kind of thinking that you've already done that. And if you have a lab environment like mine, where you need to redo this for every single lab, then that's your problem, right? So I will be skipping those steps in the future labs and just show you the actual content, right? So this is us cloning the repo. In this course, note that there are multiple repos that are being cloned. So it's kind of one for each kind of greater learning path. So this one is for the first learning path, which is AI services. And then the next one will be for vision, for example, right? But yeah, I'm presuming that this is kind of done by you by the time you start any of the other labs. Then the other part is in Azure, naturally. All right, so here we are in Azure, and similarly here, we need to create these resources for us in Azure. So again, I'm only going to show you how to do that once here. So what we want for most of the labs is an Azure AI multi-services account. In general, this is what you will use if you do kind of testing of stuff, right? So see here, we create one resource, a multi-service account that we can use for multiple different Azure AI services, like vision and speech and so on. So again, in each lab, I will presume that you have already created this, unless it's a lab where this is not supported. And there are, for example, some language understanding labs where we actually have to create a language resource instead of a multi-services resource. So if we need to do that, then I'll run you through the details of that. Otherwise, this is what we're going to be using. If you run this kind of stuff in production, then you might want to consider running this in, oh, I forgot a name. You consider run your services in individual accounts. So the multi-services account is great because you only need to create one account, and then you only need to have one set of keys to talk to all of those different AI services. But for a production account, it might be better if you would actually have separate accounts for only the stuff that you really need, and then kind of different keys for different applications to communicate with it, right? There are also some options that are only available if you create a specific account. So that way the multi-services account will not be working for those kinds of use cases. All right, here we go. It has been created. The go to resource button is funny here. It actually always goes to the resource group only with these AI services, which is different from other infrastructure. So requires you one extra click to get to where you're going. And this is now our service. You can see the endpoint here. It's the name that we gave it, .cognitiveservices.azure.com. This is also available here under resource management. And then here, of course, we can also find the keys, the API keys that are required for us to identify ourselves. So fairly normal stuff here. So we have a couple of examples here on how to work with Azure AI services. It's here under directory 1. And note that we have separate examples in both C# and Python. So I will walk through both of them. I'm going to do it fairly quickly, though. So if you're more interested in the code, then please do take your time, pause the video, and read through the code yourself before continuing. So apropos these this idea of these keys, in C# we have this app settings JSON that we're using to set up both the endpoint and the key. So let me just quickly do that. So I'm going to copy over key 1 over here. And don't worry, by the time you see this, all of these resources have already been deleted. So it's going to be okay. And then the endpoint is this one. Here we go. So now we are configured. Then there is some code here. So this is the C# version. And you can see it kind of starts off. Do install. Just wanted to show you the code. It kind of starts off by trying to read the configurations, right? So it takes the app settings.json and then reads from there what is required. And then it runs this kind of while loop where we can enter some text that's going to be read. And then we're going to call this getLanguage function and some error handling. So what does the getLanguage function do? Well, yep, there we go. C# is installed. Why did you do that? Why did you throw away my code? Okay, let's go back. All right, so here we are. So when we use this REST API, what we're doing here is basically we're creating a JSON request body that includes the text that we're trying to find a language for. And we can code it as UTF-8, and then we create an HTTP client, and then we connect to the endpoint at the resource text /analytics/3.1/languages, and then add our query string to that. And then we read what comes back, basically, as a JSON file, and then we both, if I remember correctly, we both write out the JSON as well as we parse from the JSON the detected language over here. And that's basically it, right? That's the whole program. So let's see if we can make this run. Go to this directory in the terminal. In principle, everything should be set up the way that I can just call .NET run. There we go. All right, here we are. Enter some text. Hello. Oops. So you see it sends this JSON. This is the request JSON that it sends over to Cognitive Services. And then if we make this a bit larger, then we can possibly see a bit more of what was returned. Yeah, here is the result part. Detected language English, confidence score 1. And then here at the end, language English. This is the part where we have actually paused the result. So then if I would say something like, hey, that will be the request going out. And then what we get back is Swedish with a high confidence. And then if we would be saying something like konnichiwa, come on. No, didn't like that. What? I think something went wrong there. Let's try again. Konnichiwa. Yeah. It comes back with Polish because I don't know how to actually write Japanese with the real characters, or possibly this model doesn't even support non-English letters, basically. But what else could we have here? Maybe hola. And it comes back as Spanish, whereas hola would be either also Spanish. Okay. What if I do I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't like special characters at all. If I do hey, yeah, that's Finnish. Yeah, okay, cool. So German. So this seems to be working fairly nicely. Good. Now let's kill this. Oops. And this is a bit, cumbersome, creating all of these JSON documents and requests and everything. So kind of one of the other things that we could do instead of that is to use the SDK. And you can see that there is a separate directory here with the SDK client. So let's kind of go there. And here we need to add a package now. So this is going to be the SDK for text analytics. So it's going to be .NET add package. Azure.ai.text analytics. And I think we want to use version 5.3.0. Oops. I have a wrong key map here. There you go. So the SDK has been downloaded, and that means that we can go and take a look at our stuff. So similarly, again, we have app settings here. So let's replace that with the correct data. Could have just copied it from the other directory. All right, there we go. And then now let's take a look at the code, right? So save that. And this is what the program looks like now. So we're again reading that app settings. And then we have the same while loop. And then we similarly call this get language function. So there's no real difference here at this point. But this get language part, this looks a lot nicer, right? So we create an Azure key credential based on the service key that we have defined. And then we create a new client, a text analytics client here. And we give it the endpoint based on the URL that we have, and then the credentials that we just created. And then we just call from that client the detect language function. And then it takes care of all of that JSON packaging and unpackaging and what knows, who knows what. So if there is no SDK available for your platform, you can use REST to work with the endpoints. But as you can see, your code is going to be a lot cleaner in case an SDK exists and you actually use it. So next up, let's try this stuff out. Does this actually work? Okay, so hello. Note that now we're not really seeing the JSON being transmitted. It's still going to be there, but we can't really print it out. But yeah, otherwise the functionality should be the same as previous. Oh, English for hey. Yeah, finish. I will get that fixed. Cool. So next, let's take a look at Python. So with Python, let's close C# here and close these things. With Python, we have the same directories here. We're going to start with the REST client. And here we have a .env file that's kind of similar to what we saw with the applications JSON. So that's kind of where we put our environment variables into. So first the key. And then we have our endpoint. It's this one. And then we have the actual code down here. But with Python, we actually need to first install support for the .env environment. Quit this one. Let's go up. Rest. There we go. Now we need to install Python .env. There we go. And then we can run Python, what was it? REST client. And if we take a look at the code here, you can see it's very similar. So we're getting the configuration settings here from .env, and then we have this while loop, and then we call getLanguage with whatever we're reading from the end user. And then here, similarly, you can see how we create the JSON document first. We print it out, and then we actually do an HTTP connection to the endpoint. We set some headers, and then we do the request. And then we get back the response, and then we both print it out and then parse the language that was detected. So exactly the same code, just running in Python this time. So let's see what we get. So we should get roughly the same results again. Oh. I forgot to save my env file, of course. So let's rerun this. There we go. Hello. And then we get back English. Let's say sauna. It often says the German, yeah. Thinks that sauna is a German word. I guess in the world, sauna is often referred to in German context. And then we could also say stuff like cerveja, Portuguese. Perfect. Cool. So that's working. So now I'm going to copy this environment and put it over into the SDK client. There we go. And then we can take a look at the SDK client. So similarly as with .NET, this now is otherwise the same, except this getLanguage part is a lot simpler, right? So again, we're just creating credentials, we're creating a text analytics client, and then we just call the detect language function on the SDK, and then that will automatically give us the language using an API, right? No need to parse or generate any SDK any JSON ourselves. So similarly, let's go back to SDK client here, and then now we need to install the Azure SDK. So it's text and analytics, and we wanted it to be where am I? Here. Oh. It's weird. Something fishy going on here. Yeah. 5.3.0. All right, so now we can run Python SDK client. Yeah, so it seems to be working here as well. Groose English. I don't know how to do umlauts here, so I'm just going to have to say Kartoffel to get something German. And then, what else could I say? Goedemorgen. That's supposed to be Dutch. Perfect. Okay, so now you saw how we can work with our Azure AI endpoints, either using the REST, so just HTTP, JSON over HTTP, or the SDK client, both with Python as well as with C#. Now, I'm going to stop recording here, and then in the next lab, as promised, I will not show you the creation of all of the infrastructure, but rather we're going to go directly to the main point. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next lab. Until then.